Good morning, everyone. All the technical things that we have to figure out. It has been a while since we were using translations and recording and all of that. Zoom is a wonderful resource that we have. It allows all of us from different places to gather. I'm also very happy to see that many people have made the effort to gather at the local Dharma centers that are hosting this practice. So this is really important for you, wherever you are, to make an effort to turn up at your local Dharma centers. Your local Dharma centers need you. You need to go back to your local Dharma centers and not just think, you can do everything on Zoom. Okay, good. So maybe Inigo, when you are done, you just hold something up, like maybe a booklet or something like that, and hold it up so that I notice. Sometimes I'm answering questions in the room here, or I'm telling stupid jokes in the room here and not paying attention to you. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, well, that's because I turned it off because, like I said, I was just telling stupid jokes or, doing random things. Uh, so, so now you need to go back to Spanish so that they can hear you. Yeah. Let us, open our practice with the usual recitation prayers. But because today we have both English and Spanish-speaking participants, so the neutral language we're going to use today is Tibetan. But so that it doesn't turn into completely, I have no idea what is going on. So what we will do is right now, I know the Spanish participants on Zoom in general may not have this text that we have in the room. But this is the opening recitation, so we are going to do everything in Tibetan right now. Yeah. I think maybe it is in the, or it is not in the. So anyway, Nathan, Zoom keeps. So this opening recitation, Dala Dhamma. Dala Dhamma Jibedra Nobar Jibege Tarbadan Tamje Gembe Bardu Jopra Jeba Tam Jegisu Jebe Manamkada Senjen Tamje Dewa Dan Den Tungao Thunder Nudu Lana Me Payan Tabar Sobe Chanju Rinpoche Topar Ja Dala Tangwa Jebe Da Nobar Jebe Gek Tarbadan Tamje Kembe Bardu Chopra Jeba Tam Jeki So Jebe Manang Kadang Nyampe Senjen Tam Je Dewa Dan Den Dungao Dandru Nidu Lana Me Payang Tabar Sobe Chanju Rinpoche Topar Ja Dala Dhamma Jebe Da Nobar Jebe Gek Tarbadan Tamje Gembe Bardu Chobar Jeba Tam Jegi So Jebe Manang Kadang Nyampe Senje Tamje Dewa Dan Den Dungao Dander Nudu Lana Mepa Yang Dabar Sobe Chanju Rinpoche Tobar Ja De Je De Sama
Dagi Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewa Lako Mashi Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewa Lako Du Dering Ne Sungde Nima Santa Samgi Bardu Lunga Yisum Gewa Lako. To the middle of page 5, if you have this booklet. Zonje Judan Suki Chonam La Chanju Bhardu Dani Kyapsu Chi Tagi Junso Kibe Sonam Ki Rola Penchir Sangye Dubrasho Sangye Chodan Soki Chonam La Changju Bhardu Dhani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Kibe Sonam Ki Dola Penchir Sangye Dubrasho Sangye Chodan Soki Chonam La Changju Bhardu Dhani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Penchir Sangye Dubrasho Manam Kadanyam Te Senchen Tamche Dewa Dhan Dewe Gyunan Dembar Gyurchi Dunya Dunya Gi Gyudan Dewa Gyurchi Dunya Me Pe Dewa Dhammi Dewa Gyurchi Ne Chada Nidan Dewe Danyam La Nebar Gyurchi Manam Kadanyam Be Senjen Tamche Dewa Dan Dewe Gindan Dembar Gyurchi Dunyao Dan Dunyao Gi Gyudan Dewa Gyurchi Dunyao Me Dewa Dhammi Dewa Gyurchi Niring Chada Nidan Dewe Danyam La Nebar Gyurchi. Inigo, you have this, right? You do? Yes, so if you have this, so go ahead now and read in Spanish one time what we just said in Tibetan. All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. Thus, until I achieve Buddha, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the vice of attachment and aversion. Yeah, so today our program is on the practice of the longevity practice of the Buddha Amitayus. The main reason we are doing this is due to a request from the Tibet House in Monterrey, in Mexico, requested that I go over this practice with them once more. The last time we practiced this together was when we were in the retreat center right outside of Mexico City, the Tibet House Retreat Center there, where His Holiness gave the empowerment of this Amitayus, followed by several days of alternating between practicing the physical yogas that His Holiness has been teaching in the context of Shravasti meditation. So we were alternating the practice of the physical yogas done in the morning, and then in the afternoon we were practicing the Amitayus longevity practice. I know there are times I'm just talking to this room, so I know that the audio is not on. So anyway, although the common translation for this is longevity, so this has, if we speak of longevity, we think, making your life long. Well, one aspect of this practice is said to have the power to protect against accidental deaths. So even given the general teaching and understanding of karma, where it seems like, given a karmic universe, there's no accidents, right? But nonetheless, within the tradition, nonetheless within the many sources that we have, there are clearly types of death that has been called accidental. So without going into, this is not like some kind of accounting balance sheet, where if you don't balance, you've done something wrong, right? Please don't. I think in part because in the scholastic tradition that Buddhists developed in India, everything is made to sound as if, it's a jigsaw puzzle and everything has an exact location, exact place to fit, Then we come to expect that, everything should fit, But life doesn't work like this, So why should Dharma work like this? So there's no need, also no time today. Although, yes, the tradition has come up with all sorts of answers, to how accidental can happen even within a karmic understanding of how things happen. For us, I think it's sufficient to think of accidental as untimely. Right? Then, of course, I don't know if anyone has quite said, maybe some cases, but most cases, nobody will say, timely, now I go, But anyway, it says, it prevents against accidental death. or untimely death. So that's one like main function, so to say, main activity, main power of this practice. The other translation for this notion of 智, longevity. And the second one, I think, maybe might resonate with us better. The understanding of like accidental death, it becomes more real, you know. There's a request to record this locally. No, we are not doing that. Apply this permission to all future requests in this meeting. See that? Click that. Yeah. So the understanding of like this practice prevent accidental death has more resonance. Yeah? If we live in places where accidental deaths happen on a regular basis. And this was a reality for many people in Tibet back then, and more so there these days than here, even these days. But there's a second meaning of this 智, and this is about vitality. And this is what I increasingly like to use this translation. That it's, when we speak of longevity, what we're talking about is basically vitality of life. Right now, for example, medical technology is amazing in so many ways, but sometimes it seems like medical technology can keep someone physically alive, but with vitality completely gone. So what we'll see in this practice is that this is a practice of cultivating. This is a practice of cultivating, conserving, and attracting vitality. So this is another aspect of what this practice does. So this vitality, vitality of life, is what will allow us, now we get to the motivation part. Right? The vitality of life that we're cultivating and the prevention of accidental death that we're cultivating, or untimely death that we're cultivating, needs to be in the context of the bodhicitta vow, right? In order to benefit beings, I'm cultivating this. Now, that may not be the truth, but we will make effort to make that to be true. That may not be true, as in, mainly because, saying, I don't want to die so soon. Or I don't want to feel like I'm living without vitality. Also, I'm going to do this practice. Okay, so we can be honest and say, well, I'm basically starting with just looking out for myself. But that's okay if we also know how to say, or can understand, appreciate, and really like, well, this may be where I am now, but I am working on understanding that this vitality that I'm cultivating, this prevention against accidental death, is so that bodhicitta, that bodhicitta vow can be actualized. The two bodhicittas can be actualized. And so this is really important. Otherwise, right now, so we go back to the idea of timely and untimely.
our ordinary definition of timely and untimely, almost in all cases, death is untimely. Yeah? Unless like you are in a real miserable state, physically, mentally, then maybe in those rare cases, someone will say, "Oh yes, it's timely," but otherwise it's untimely, right? Now, from the perspective of positive and negative karma, if you're living a life where you're constantly creating negative karma, then to live until 100 is very untimely. I'm not suggesting you should end it yourself. That is also non-virtue. But know that, simply having a lot of time, having a lot of vitality, if you're using that time and that vitality to cause harm, and living until 120, that's very untimely. It should only be 60 in that case. But if you are living a life, where you're cultivating positive karma and cultivating the causes of happiness, reducing the causes of suffering for yourself and for others, then every minute that you can get is a minute that you want to get, right? So there was a question in the room here, a question that specifically to this practice, but I think it applies to all the other practices that we do. The question is there an aspect of like doing this practice for someone's, maybe in a more specific way, someone that, the life is maybe being threatened by some illness or disease, and can we do this practice for them? And the answer is basically, first of all, we should do our practices for the benefit of all beings. So in that broader general sense, we need to keep working on that. Then on the practical level, there is the question of, however, do we have the power yet to directly intervene? Probably not yet, until we have connected with Amitayus. Or you could think of it as, until we have kind of actualized that principle. So this applies to medicine, Buddha practice, Dharma practice. But at the same time, of course, we're not saying, people are having difficulties and we don't help. We help. My point is more, be realistic about, the extent that you're able to help. So in the traditional structure of like cultivating a particular deity principle, there are 3 stages of practice. The first one is called the approximation or the approach stage, then the accomplishing stage, and then the activating stage. These 3 stages. Yeah, so the first stage, called the approximation, is sometimes also called, in some texts, it's called service. In Sanskrit, seva. The seva, service to the deity. So there, again, there are 2 ways to kind of. So for example, generally speaking, you have to. So Tibetans, based on Indian kind of precedents, have come up with a rough measure for how long you should remain in the first stage, the service stage, the seva, the approximation stage. So they say, based on the syllables in the mantra. So the short mantra, the heart essence mantra here is Om A Mi. So Om A Ma Ra Ni Jivan Taye Soha. 11. Right? 11 syllables. Om A Ma Ra Ni Jivan Taye Soha. 11. 11 multiplied by 100,000. What's that? 1.1 million?
100,000.
11 times 100,000. So you have to complete that number of recitations of the Amitayus mantra. Then maybe you have tuned into the right frequency. But good news, some of us might have already done most of it in the last life. So it might seem like you accidentally tune into the right frequency, but there are no accidents in that sense. Yeah? So it's also hard to say. In practical terms, when this Amitayus practice is done in the context of the beginning of a longer program of practice, such as the famous 3-year retreat, then generally in the Gagyu Nyingma tradition of 3-year retreat, the first month, about 16-hour day of practice, is dedicated to Amitayus. 1 month of Amitayus. Yes, so in the context of this Amitayus being the first practice done for a longer program, so specifically like people who are doing the 3-year retreat, so that's one context. Then based on the practice done in the 3-year retreat, these days especially, Lamas teaching outside of the traditional context, teaching the Dharma in various places in Asia, various places in the Americas and in Europe and different parts of the world. When they, for example, give the ngondro, the preliminaries, the famous or infamous hundreds of thousands of this and hundreds and thousands of that, they would first again start students by saying, first you do this Amitayus practice. Now there's also a particular reason, which is that when you start something intensive, which is like starting the ngondro, is something intensive. Even though it's called preliminary practice, majority of Tibetan Buddhists don't do ngondro because it's a preliminary to something very serious. It's not preliminary like kindergarten that everybody goes to. It's not. It's like preliminary like your GREs to go to graduate school. Right? Taking graduate school examination. So they're preliminaries to something profound. And that something profound will profoundly change you. And change you for the better. But what that also means is when you are embarking to do something that will profoundly change you, at least in theory, then obstacles tend to turn up. Yeah? In part, these obstacles turn up because you are starting to, not always, right? But in part, what is going on is you are starting to do things to cause strong negative karma to ripen. but to ripen in a way that you can withstand. Yeah. So the types of negative karma that can be destroyed because they are still in seed form, so to say. This profound practice that you're doing have the power to destroy. But if the seed has started to sprout, then the profound practice that you're doing may sprout it faster so that it can be identified and pulled out as a weed, so to say. So, Amitayus practice is a foundational practice in bringing more vitality to withstand temporary, and this is important to understand, temporary disruption that might come up in the process of engaging in the profound practices. So then from the ngondro, then you move on to whatever the main, whether it's Mahamudra or Dzogchen. There are further, like in Dzogchen, there's another set of preliminaries. Then likewise in the Mahamudra, there's another set of preliminaries, which is more the Shamatha Vipassana preliminaries. So all those can kind of bring up disruptions. Disruptions that if you have cultivated a strong kind of foundation in attracting vitality of life and preventing accidental deaths or untimely death, then it becomes really important. So that's another context of like practicing Amitayus. And so for some of us here, this is also the context in which we should practice Amitayus, because if you want to then start practicing this cycle that we have been entrusted with, the Ladrup, the accomplishing of the Guru cycle, then we should start, by cultivating this vitality through Amitayus practice. Then, of course, also, even if we have not done or completed the approximation or the service, with like 1.1 million recitation of Om Amarani Dzivante Soha, we can gather as a group to do practice to help someone, no doubt. But the more chances that when we gather as a group to do the practice and direct that practice to someone, more chances and more effectiveness. It is often said that the power of the practice in general increases by the number of bodies in the room. And so if there is if you do one repetition of Om Amarani Dzivante Soha, right? And if you do it in the same room with let's say there is like 30 of us here, let's say, I don't know. So then if 30 people at the same moment says Om Amarani Dzivante Soha, then each of us have accumulated the equivalent of 30 recitation in that one recitation. So this is Vajrayana mathematics. So then it's 30. So then 2 recitations, repeating the mantra twice, 60. 2 becomes 60. 3 becomes 90. The Tantras don't say anything about Zoom, so I don't know.
So now let's look at the sadhana. Please turn to the first page of the sadhana. So we begin, I want to just quickly go over the notes here. These notes are given for a more extensive form of the Amitayus practice. This particular sadhana is prepared for a more regular use. But nonetheless, I have kept the notes that come with the more extensive practice, which is then to say, what these notes in red are saying is that you should have this if you can. Of course, if you don't, then you don't. So in the notes it says, if one wishes to perform the practice of Amitayus Buddha, of the tradition of Drupegyamo. Drupegyamo is the Indian Mahasiddha. They say that she was a princess before she became this great Mahasiddha. And Siddharajni, which means the mistress or the queen of accomplishments, was her name, Siddharajni. In Tibetan is Drupegyamo. That she was the main holder of this tradition, that then Milarepa's student, Rechongpa, when Rechongpa went to India, Rechongpa learned this practice from a lama called Mr. Pigeon. Yeah, literally, Tipupa, Mr. Pigeon. And Mr. Pigeon had received this transmission from Siddharajni. Then Rechongpa brought this back to Tibet, and then Milarepa said, now you give this empowerment to me. And so in this one rare case of the student became the teacher. So this lineage transmission is a little unusual. Because Milarepa didn't go to India. Earlier in his life, he wanted to go to India to get the real stuff. But then he met Marpa, and he got enough of the real stuff, and he became the greatest Siddha, so to say, in Tibet. But his student, Rechongpa, kind of an arrogant, difficult type, always thinks he knows more than Milarepa. And maybe to even compete with Milarepa, he insisted that he wanted to go to India. Milarepa told him, no need. Because what you need to fully transform your state, I have all of that. I got from Marpa. Rechongpa kept saying, I want to go and to go. So in the end, Milarepa said, okay, go. Many stories about Rechongpa's kind of I know better than you attitude towards his teacher, Milarepa. Anyway, Rechongpa is the one that brought it back and brought this transmission to Tibet. Milarepa said to Rechongpa, so if you insist on going, there's a couple of transmissions that I've heard of that have not arrived yet in Tibet. So make yourself useful, bring those things back. As for the other things you want to bring, I have no interest in. Rechongpa also wanted to learn some magical arts. Milarepa said, I'm not interested. Been there, done that. Earlier in his life, Milarepa learned magical arts, and it's like, no interest. But these two things. One is eventually what's known as Rechong Nengyu, the oral transmission of heard oral transmission of Rechong, which is a Jaka Samvara practice, and this Amitayus practice. So this is the reference here. So here, right, coming back to the notes, the Amitayus Buddha practice of the tradition of Drubegyamo, place the longevity torma in the center of a sand mandala, or 5 heaps of flowers. So this is the longevity torma, yeah, and this is a metal longevity torma shaped in the form of the longevity vase. You could also make this out of barley dough, but more commonly you can buy this made from metal. So this is the longevity torma. So it says place a longevity torma. So like basically at the center of the shrine, and this is talking about especially when you're doing a Amitayus retreat. For daily practice of Amitayus, you don't need a longevity torma. But if you're dedicating a few days, a week, then it's good to have a longevity torma. If you don't have a longevity torma, so Vajrayana rituals are very elastic. You can stretch it, or not. You don't have a longevity torma, you go look for a picture of a longevity torma. Then you put the picture on your shrine. So then it says on a sand mandala. Obviously, most of us are not, don't have the know-how to go make a sand mandala. Then it says 5 heaps of flowers. That means 1 heap in the center, then in the 4 directions. Then put the torma on that. Then what Tibetans do for heaps of flowers, even though they are now in India, they are now in the US, because in Tibet, heaps of flowers have been translated into heaps of rice, grains. So they put 5 heaps of grains and then put the torma on it. So this is for the shrine. Then it says also arrange an image of Amitayus. So if you can put a photo, a statue, a tanka of Amitayus, then you do that. Now this is based on the understanding that between the torma and the statue or the painting, the torma is more accessible. Obviously not in this metal form. We're talking about using barley flour, which is Tibetan cereal, and Tibetan rice, and Tibetan staple food. Yeah? Using that to form a temporary representation of the deity, which is really what tormas are. They are temporary representations of the deity. And they are very available, like, if you have rice, or you could say bagel. Where bagel? Okay, put a piece of bagel there and stick a picture of Amitayus on it, and that's the long life torma. Now, of course, it's not exotic enough for us. Bagel, But it's really saying, put a, food, staple food. Then, of course, in Tibet, over time, very intricate designs developed by the different lineages as ornaments for the torma. Statues, photos, you never know photos, you can't just go download a picture and print it. But now it's very easy to do that. And so it says an image of Amitayus.
For the bagel, should it be one with everything?
Haha. Go ahead. Yeah, so what are longevity pills? So here it says you also need to have longevity pills. Longevity pills are basically pills. They are pills made out of roasted barley flour, tsamba, then mixed with what they call the three sweets and the 3 whites.
And the three sweets are honey, sugar, and molasses. Then the three whites are milk, curd, which is yogurt, and clarified butter, ghee. So if they're made into these pills, then if you are able to put into the mix a longevity pill from a previous longevity empowerment, that is said to be best. You mix in there, then you make into these pills. Again, this is in the context of an extended retreat, not daily practice. Then elixir is represented by juice, beer. Again, if you have these elixir pills, dutsi rubu, these elixir pills, then you dissolve into, you mix it into this juice or milk, or Tibetans, will use chang. So this barley beer. Then a longevity arrow, which is this, called a dadar. So the elixir and the pills are not necessary for regular practice. But longevity arrow, good to have if you have, basically, go find yourself an arrow, ribbons, streamers of the 5 basic colors, then a melon or a mirror with some jewel ornaments, turquoise, coral or fake coral, Z or fake Z, these some precious stones, semi-precious stones, and you have a dadar. Or you can go buy ready-made dadar in Nepal or online, Yeah, so this, in the regular sadhana, it has a use. Longevity arrow, dadar, and the preliminary torma. Again, this preliminary torma we don't use daily. Preliminary torma is referring to the offering that you give to the local spirits and deities, and tell them, please be helpful, please don't cause trouble. I'm not causing any trouble either. So let me successfully complete this, So preliminary torma also not needed for daily practice. And then it says in front of the Vajra master, or in front of the practitioner, you put the necessary things such as Vajra, bell, and the activity vase. Activity vase is this one here. So this vase is used, the water here, using this, the main activity is the activity of cleansing, cleansing the offerings. So this is the lebum activity vase. If you don't have, an activity vase, then you want maybe a glass of water with, a little twig of flower, and use that to sprinkle. Then, if you have a damaru, good. So with that, with this kind of description here about what to put on the shrine, ideally, and then what to put in front of your practice table, then we're ready to start. And we start with the
short lineage prayer, invoking the blessings of the lineage. So how we're going to do this is together we'll chant in the Tibetan, and then after that I'm going to mute this microphone while we continue here at Urban Dharma into the English, and then if Inigo, you in the translation room can read the Spanish, that'll be good. Jin la kundu sa yu la ma da nge zhu zhou so zheng den se yi la mi tun zheng ze kan zhe zhu gyong la se chi dong wei yi ki so dem na tu je da so ka kyab lu chen kun chi me gong pa za la go gyur chu. Next, there are two mantras, and these two mantras is to bless the offerings that we have set out on the shrine. Om Vajra Saparanakam Om Sarva Pura Pura Sura Sura Avataya Avataya Om. Pa me du selve tu ke sabongi oki chu chu gyawa kurche se pa me ki nam par dungi nam ka chendra. Appear as Amitayus lights radiating from the seed syllable at their heart, inviting the victorious ones of the tender
directions and retinue, all in the form of Amitayus to the space in front. Vajra Samaja Pema Asana Tishta Satam Nama Sarva Tathagata Saparivara Pandanam Karomi. Kunju sumla dhagyab chi thipa mike sosor sha drowe gela chi yirang samge changju yiki sun samge chodan sochola changju pardu dhagyab chi rangjen doni rabdu chir Changchu semni ke pargi, changchu chogi semni ke gini, simchen tamche dagi tundu nyer, changchu chocho iwo che pargi, drola penjir sangye druparshu. To the three jewels I go for refuge, I confess each misdeed and non-virtue, and rejoice in the virtue of wandering beings. I will also be mindful of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. I go for refuge until awakening is reached, to fully accomplish the benefit of both self and other. I generate the awakening mind, having generated supreme awakened mind. I will serve all sentient beings and delightfully engage in the supreme deeds of the Bodhisattvas for the benefit of wandering beings. May I accomplish Buddhahood. Om Vajra Argyam Ahong Om Vajra Padyam Ahong Om Vajra Pushpe Ahong Om Vajra Drupe Ahong Om Vajra Aloke Ahong Om Vajra Gende Ahong Om Vajra Nivide Ahong Om Vajra Shabda Ahong. Tamche la shindu kungi drane ki lutu peni nam kuntu choktu depe to parki ho. To all of you worthy of praise, I continuously bow with bodies countless as dust particles. Supreme faith, I praise you. So Shinam Rala Timbar Guru. The assembly field dissolves into you. So what it means here is the Amitayus and the refuge field that we invited to the space in front of us as we gathered the accumulations through the five-part puja and the making of these offerings and praise. Now they dissolve into the light and dissolve into us. So we now think that we have received refuge, the protection and the power of refuge. And so that we have become this refuge. Yeah, so I think now is a good time to take a break. We will be back in 20 minutes. Yeah? A quick 20-minute break. Ish. Bhadra Sattva Samayam Anupalayam Bhadra Sattva Denopa Tishtadhito Memava Sutokayo Memava Supokayo Memava Anurato Memava Sarva Siddhim Mempreyacha Sarva Karma Suchame Chitam Shreya Guru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Bhajrama Me Muncha Bhajre Bhava Maha Samaya Sato. So now we are looking at the main part of the practice, which is the generation stage. So here, basically, we are training to actualize this identity of Amitayus, ourselves. And so we ourselves transform into Amitayus. Of course, now we're rehearsing. And as long as we're rehearsing, it's part of the whole process of feeling awkward, feeling off, right? Sometimes feeling more confident, other times feeling very doubtful, like what am I doing? Well, because it takes time to two things, Actually, it boils down to one thing. It's self-grasping. I think sometimes when we hear the expression self-grasping, we have a tendency of quickly going in the direction of like you are egotistical. Self-grasping is actually something way more subtle than egotistical. Yeah? Like egotistical is already way down the road. What a jerk. Only thinks of himself. Self-grasping, in its most subtle level, and it's right there where it starts, is this very subtle fixation, and specifically fixation on I. And relative to this practice, or in the context of this practice, fixation on a particular notion of I that we have. For some of us, it's associated with even the image of that I when you were 14 or 42 or 27 or 65. And there's that image of I. And what Deity Yoga generation stage practices are designed to do is to help us shift from that image, that fixation, that particular fixation wedded to a particular image of I, to remove that. And in its place, the identity of a Buddha. Of course, there are so many Buddha expressions, so many expressions of the awakened that one could train with. And then we say, depending on your karmic connection, you might resonate with one more than the other. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. Right? Like this practice may mean nothing to you right now and mean something to you 3 years later. Or mean something to you now, maybe 3 years later, don't mean much. It's part of the process. Yeah, so we will do this first chanting in the Tibetan, and then section by section. We'll chant in the Tibetan, then we'll continue with the English. So those of you who are in the Spanish room, you can listen to, you can repeat that in Spanish on your own. And so we're going to go section by section so that this can be recorded as well for the groups that are focusing on this practice, the various Tibet House centers. Om Swabhava Shuddha Sarva Dharma Swabhava Shuddhoham Dashin Zingi Topa Nobo Zimba Tamche Tomba Nidur Gyur Degangle Naso Pema Dang Dawe Denda Torma Igeri Marboring Chatsera Dan Chebale Utro Doni Jesurdu Relatim De Yongsu Gyurbale Gompo Tsebame Kudo Marbo Nangla Ranjime Pa Tsempe Genpa Shel Chi Chani Ba. The conceptualities of grasping at self and other, holding things as real, all this become emptiness within this state. On a multicolored lotus and moon seed, the Dharma appears as a red radiating lights, accomplishing the two benefits. The lights return to the Re, which transforms into protector. Amitayus, red in complexion, appearing yet without inherent existence. He has all the major and minor marks and has one face and two arms. Udrarel Pechu Benchen Rinpoche Natso Pe Ugyen Nien Gen Gu Gen Do Shel Du Shab Du La Sopa O Trove Tse Pa Dana Soki To Yoda
chen chani nyam shagi tena chi me se dutsi kangwe bumpa ka gen gu jing ki trepa nampa. He has long hair and wears a crown of various jewels, earrings, short and long necklaces, bracelets, anklets, and so forth. Radiant and handsome, he wears multicolored silks for upper and lower garments. His two hands are in the gesture of meditative equipoise, supporting a vase with a sprinkler and silk ribbons tied around the neck of the vase, filled with the elixir of deathlessness. Shabdur je kil mo tungi supe trewa pimba artuka ongi tsembale otrope gomba dan trawe yesheba chinrang. His legs are in Vajra position, and the head center is an in the throat is an and in the heart is a home from which lights radiate, inviting the Jnana Sattva appear in the form identical to the visualized. Zahom ham ho nisu me partin laryan tuke sabon le otrope wangila ringa chendran. Zahom ba oh, they dissolve inseparably. Then from the seed syllable in the heart lights radiate, inviting the embalmed deities of the five families. Gula saparivara argam pratija soha om pancha gula saparivara padyam pratija soha om pancha gula saparivara pushpe pratija soha Om Panchakula Saparivara Dupe Pratija Soha Om Panchakula Saparivara aloke pratija soha om bencha kula sapari vara gende pratija soha om bencha kula sapari vara Nevede pratija soha om bencha kula saparivara shabda sarva tathagata abhisinyancha dumam she sova tabe vangile om sarva tathagata abhishekata sammaya Beju Kurkugan Mada Chulamale Opa Meki Uge Wang La Nam Rang Nila Timbar Guru. Thus supplicate the empowerment deities with Om Sarva Tathagata Abhisincha Dumam with Om Sarva Tathagata Abhishekata Samvaya with the water from the vase, purifying the body of stains. The overflowing water turns into taba, ornamenting the crown. The empowerment deities dissolve into you. Om Sarva Tathagata Ayunyana Saparivara Argham Padyam Pushpe Dupe Aloke Gende Nevede Shabda Pratija Tsobo Tsepa Me Dumin Chiwa Malu Chom Tsepa Gumme Dunya Kirpa Namki Kya Sanje Tsepa Mela Chaselo Amitayus, chief guide of this world, destroyer of untimely death without exception, refuge for protectorless suffering beings, I pay homage to you, boundless life Buddha.
So just to point out the wordings here, if we go back to, in the English version, if you go back to page 7, and there, you will see that the way we have it in this practice text, at least the English one that we have here, you see that it says, within this state on a multicolored lotus and moon seat, the torma appears as a red hui, right? So there is referring to this torma. For daily practice, you change those words, the torma, to myself, instead of torma, myself. The torma one is more in the context of a retreat. There you actually begin first with myself, then at the second session, the torma, then the third session, self and torma. And so different sessions of the day, you do it slightly differently. So here, for daily regular practice, instead of saying the torma appears as a red hui, like myself or my mind, my basic kind of consciousness takes on this form of the hui. So then, also then in that section for the Tibetan, right? So look for the word torma in the phonetics, in the transliteration. It's let's see, 1, 2, 3, and at least the text that we have, 1, 2, 3, third line down. The third line that begins Pema dang dawe den dang, dawe den dang. So torma ige hui. Here torma you change, if you are chanting in Tibetan, you change the rangni, myself, rangni. Ige hui marpo. Rangni. Next section is the main part. It's the recitation of the mantra. So then next we are going to establish and build up the visualization that is in the following words. Page 12 for those of you using this booklet. Tukar dawe usuri yiki tarna ki korwale otro dowe donje samje jangsen namki jinlab dune natren sabon dan che pala tempar guru in the heart. Center of a moon is the 3 syllables surrounded by the mantra, radiating lights that benefit wandering beings and gathering the blessings of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They dissolve into the mantra garland and seed syllable. They dissolve. That dissolve is the gathering of the blessings. And that dissolves, not they. That dissolve into the mantra garland and seed syllables. So now, in the center of your heart is the mundus. On top is this red hui, that's the seed syllable, surrounded by the mantra. Well, there are two one dharani and one mantra. The dharani is the long one. Then the mantra, amarani zivantaya soha, is the shorter one. So you can imagine two concentric circles. The outer one is the dharani, yeah? Then the inner one is the Om Amarani Devantya Soha. And keeping all of that there, too challenging, completely normal. Just keep three on the moon disk, surrounded by Om Amarani Devantya Soha. Then even that, just to vaguely be aware, realistically, right? You have the Hri syllable, then vaguely arranging around there is the mantra, red in color. As you recite, it will turn. The mantras turn, like circle, the seed syllable in the middle. As it circles, like when you wave, a torch, a fire torch, then it has the visual kind of illusion of a circle of light. Then this circle of light sweeps out. Think of it, sweeping out, bigger and further and bigger and further as it sweeps out, right? It's doing these two things, benefiting wandering beings, and not only does it sweep out, right, going like this, right? As it goes out, it's also bringing back in. So it's purifying, blessing beings. So here in particular is when, like I said to that question earlier, how do we also do this to help others? Well, other than the bodhicitta motivation, which underlies all of this, during this visualization in particular, you can bring those people that need specific help with into this space. And think of this light as going out to them, taking out all their obstacles to longevity, to vitality, like the sweeping, sweeps out, take out. Instead, the blessing lights go into them. Om Namo Bhagavate Aparimitayu Jnana Suvinishchita Tejo Rajaya Tathagataya Arahate Samya Sambuddhaya Teyatha Om Punye Punye Maha Punye Aparimita Punye Aparimita Punya Jnana Sambha Chitte Om Sarva Samskara Parishuddhe Dharmate Gagana Samungate Swabhava Vishuddhe Mahanaya Parivare Soha. Namo Bhagavate Aparimitayu Jnana Suvinishchita Tejo Rajaya Tathagataya Arahate Samya Sambuddhaya Teyatha Om Punye Punye Maha Punye Aparimita Punye Aparimita Punya Jnana Sambharopa Chitte Om Sarva Samskara Parishuddhe Dharmate Gagana Samungate Swabhava Vishuddhe Mahanaya Parivare Soha. Namo Bhagavate Aparimitayu Jnana Suvinishchita Tejo Rajaya Tathagataya Arahate Samya Sambuddhaya Teyatha Om Punye Punye Maha Punye Aparimita Punye
apparimita punya dhyana sambharopa citte om sarva samskara Shuddhe dharmate gagana sammungate svabhava vishuddhe mahanaya parivare svoha om amarane jivantiye soha 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 Om Amarane Zavande, Om Amarane Zavande. Om Amarane Zevante Soha. Om Amarane Zevante Soha. Om Amarane Zevante Soha. The next part in the sadhana is called the summoning of vitality, the summoning of life force. So here it explains that in the earliest tradition of Siddharajni, Drupigyamo's longevity, empowerment sadhana, the ritual of summoning life force was absent. So there's no fault in not performing it. However, later, this practice of summoning like vitality was brought in from the Nyingma traditions. So from the dharmas, from the tradition of the hidden treasures, there are these ritual techniques of summoning vitality. So this probably is, you could say, Guru Rinpoche's skillful adaptation of existing notions and beliefs and ritual forms, the pre-Buddhist, which now we call Bunpo, but in their own time, I don't think this term was used. It's just the native religion, so-called nameless religion of all cultures. They have a local sense of how things work. So definitely in that context, there's this notion of vitality lost because it was stolen. So in this world of spirit beings, mischievous, troublemaking spirit beings would steal vitality. Lots of definitely stories, me growing up in Malaysia, of vitality vampires that will come and suck life out of you, things like that. And then the Buddhist layer, when the Buddhist teachings came in, they say, yes, but what you all are talking about is how vitality gets depleted, not why. Why? Karma. Right? So Guru Rinpoche would say, yes, he did not say, oh no, this, no. Says, yes, you figure it out how, vitality is lost. Yeah, malevolent spirits are stealing them when you are not careful. Then he says, do you know what not careful means? Not careful means when you engage in the 10 non-virtues. Then even more basic than that, vitality is lost when we forget our basic Buddha identity. That very subtle level. Then we become, instead of limitless life, we may become limited life and afflicted life. On that level. So anyway, this is like to dramatize that special effect, So this summoning, pulling back of life force. There's even a sense of like you are also engaging in stealing. Like steal the vitality of powerful beings, There's a sense of that. I mean, it's playing with the, indigenous kind of Tibetan sense of like, vitality is like kind of some sort of like there's a finite number, so it's circulating around. So unsuspecting powerful gods, So it's not encouraging that we steal, but it's resonating with, right, how Tibetans understand about vitality. So yes, don't steal anyone's vitality, but the language here is like, they have no choice, you are pulling it all back to here, or pulling it back to all the beings that you're practicing for. Rangi tseba me sewe tuke sabun le gyawa ringa tsebun da da toba pakdu me patro, clearly visualizing yourself as Amitayus from the seed syllable in your heart centers radiates limitless vectors of the 5 families holding bases and longevity arrows. Rangi Shatra Do Nambar Shepe Kamne Tse Doya Nyam Yoge Kyam Relshi Ching Dongge Ki Kutro Pa Tam Che Da Saju Melo Nam Ke Juda Sangye Changsen Amma Idam Kandra Chukyon Tam Che Ki Jin Labda Tsela Wangwa Tam Che Ki Tse Ring Zen Rowa Ridu Ki Tse So Benjon So Lu Wang Long Ki Tok Tam Che Kuk Ne Tse Tse Nam La Jin. Life forces from the essences of your own flesh, blood, heat, breath, consciousness, elements that have been scattered, weakened, lost, damaged, dented, or collapsed, all which has been stolen or robbed by evil spirits and obstructors, together with earth, water, fire, air, and space, and the blessings of all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Gurus, Idams, Dakinis, Dharmapalas, Vidyadharas, with power over life, the powers of the lifespan, merit, splendor, life force, health, potency, luck of sentient beings of the 6 realms, all these are summoned and dissolve into the longevity substances. And so again, this is in the context of extended retreat. Then they dissolve into the longevity substances, into the pills and the elixir. In the absence of that, then you say dissolving into myself. shayi kamne senyamna Chumden rinjun yap yungi sayi kamne sekyuji Om Ratna Ayushe Hong So basically the movement is you wave as you chant. Then when you get to Om Ratna Ayushe Hongja, you let this kind of wrap around. So the idea is that it all gets absorbed. That's this meaning of this movement. In the English translation, the mantra Om Ratna Ayushe Hongja should really be there as well. You see this last line in the Tibetan, Om Ratna Ayushe Hongja. Also bring it down to the English translation there. This mantra line should be there. Hong through the element of flesh, the lifespan of me, a lord of yogis, has decreased. Bhagavan Ratna Sambhava, male and female, summon lifespan from the earth element. Om Ratna Om Dhani Neo Jo Wang Chu Gi Dragi Kam Ne Se Nyam Na Chum Den Mi Kyo Yab Yun Gi Chu Yi Kam Ne Se Kyu Chi Om Dadra Ayushe through the element of blood, the lifespan of me, a lord of yogis, has decreased. Bhagavan, Akshobhya, male and female, summon lifespan from the water element. Om Dhani Neo Jo Wang Chu Gi Ruki Kam Ne Se Nyam Na Chum Den Pa Me Yab Yun Yi Me Yi Kam Ne Se Kyu Chi Om Pema Ayushe through the element of heat, the lifespan of me, a lord of yogis, has decreased. Bhagavan, Amitabha, male and female, summon lifespan from the fire element. Om Pema Om Dhani Neo Jo Wang Chu Yi Uki Kam Ne Se Nyam Na Chum Den Thun Drup Yap Yun Gi Lung Gi Kam Ne Se Kyu Chi Om Karma Ayushe Om through the element of breath, the lifespan of me, the Lord of yogis, has decreased. Bhagavan, Amoga Siddhi, male and female, summon lifespan from the wind element. Om Karma Ayushe Om Dhani Neo Jo Wang Chu Gi Nam She Kam Ne Se Nyam Na Chum Den Nam Nang Yap Yun Gi Nam Ke Kam Ne Se Kyu Chi Om Buddha Ayushe through the element of consciousness, the lifespan of me, a lord of yogis, has decreased. Bhagavan Vairochana, male and female, summon lifespan from the space element. Om Abda Ayuse. So this next part, so you want to wrap the streamlets around and then hold it so that it's like this now, rather loosely. Gelden seme dorjela namnang korlo kuyigya pame pema sungigya mikyo dorje tukigya rinjo rinchen yongten gya dondru gya dam trinle gya migyur minyam gedabo. This fortunate deathless Vajra Vairochana's wheel seals exalted body, Amitabha seals exalted speech, Vajra seals exalted mind, Ratna Sambhava's jewel seals exalted qualities, Amoga Siddhis cross, Vajra seals exalted activities, sealing in the unchanging and undefiled. So now it says make a cross in the 5 locations. So basically like this. But symbolic, because it's not quite possible to do it in all the 5 locations. 5 locations are crown, then throat, then heart, then navel, then 4 fingers below the navel. As we recite the mantra. Om Buddha Vajra Ratna Pema Karma Mudra Supradishta Raksha. Semi Shipa Durje Tabu Girji Mino Pagyal Sen Tabu Migyo Vayundrun Tabur Girji Jime Durje Kuchok Tobar Shoshi. The next part of this sadhana, which we won't cover today, this is the offering of the torma. So making a food offering to the deities. It says to do it in between sessions. In the context of like if you do this as a longer retreat, so in the longer retreat you divide the day into 4 sessions. So meaning like at the end of a session, you can do this offering. Now, often it's done once a day. And it's so at the end of one of the sessions, you do this torma offering. So if you're doing the torma offering, then you need to, have an actual offering. Fruits, food. You need to have that offering placed on the shrine.
This practice also has a feast offering, which is not included in this text. There's a supplement to that. There's also a feast offering. Then the preliminary torma offering, all those are in the supplement. Again, all this not necessary for regular practice. Now turn a few pages over. For us, it's page 26. Turn to the page where the offering mantra is. Ayunyana saparivara argam praticca soha. So turn to that page. I'm not sure in the Spanish which page that is. This is a few pages after. This is after the Torma offering section. There is Ayunyana saparivara argam praticca soha. So in regular practice of this is where you go after the mantra recitation and after the summoning. Even the summoning, is kind of secondary. I can say, like this summoning, it becomes a much more kind of effective as you have built up some more direct channel to Amitayus. Then you have more of an ability, and it has a completely different feeling as you call the vitality of the elements, as you summon them to dissolve into you. So mostly now is to go to the mantra and build up this power, so to say, the clarifying the channel connection to this principle, to this Buddha. But for those of you who perhaps grew up with Harry Potter, so this is as close as wielding a wand you're gonna get. So maybe, it's a little exciting. Om Ayugyana Saparivara Argyam Padyam Pushpe Dhupe Aloke Kene Nevede Shabda Praticca Soha. Rinpe sovo tsepa me dume chiwa malu chomsepe gome dunya gyurpa namki kya sangye tsepa mela chase. Amitayus, chief guide of this world, destroyer of untimely death, without exception, refuge for protectorless suffering beings, I pay homage to you, boundless light. Majur yungsu manye da namon lo ye gagi pe chela nompa kirpada gongkyo de kun so parzo for meager incomplete offerings, mistakes made through my ignorance, and for adding or omitting things. Protector, please forgive these mistakes. Om Bhadra Sattva
준된 공부 제밤에 ninjin rupe 개와기 다소조와 마루바 시릭젠 조도쇼 Bhagavan Amitayus, protector by the virtue of this recitation and practice, may I and all wandering beings attain the supreme Vidyadhara level. Rimindro Dampe Choso wa Sagyulame Kashi Madhu Choso Swa Jime Gompo Trahi Yachen Varje Setse Ba Dam Cheng Yaso Chusem Chorim Hoche Magye Anam Kye Gurchu Ke Banyam Pa Me Bharyam Gone Gong Du Belwar Sho. Done. So in terms of local Sangha here, there's a rumor that we may be doing this on a regular basis on Saturday, sometime on Saturday. So just stay tuned for the rumors to become true.